With all the craziness in this world, we are here to have open and honest conversations to help navigate our thoughts.
Sometimes we are right and sometimes we're wrong. But in the end, if we aren't learning, we aren't living.
This is Philip.
And this is Wes.
And we are
Two Bottles Deep. Oh, hey, Phil.
Hello, Wes.
God, we're close today.
We are.
Well, there's a lot going on in Tennessee.
Yes,
this is going to be a big episode. A lot of legislation. There's a bill passed to ban drag, which is crazy, and a lot of other big words that I can't pronounce.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in. Yep. But we're very excited for our special guest today. If you're on YouTube, you've already seen who's in studio. But a quick intro. Tavares, a.k.a. Vivica Steele, began her drag career in 2010 and has worked her way all the way to the most popular street in Nashville, where she identifies herself as the Harriet Tubman of Broadway.
And the only two drag show residencies on Broadway she hosts, right here. She is using her drag career as a platform for advocacy, with her primary focus being to help homeless LGBTQ youth in Middle Tennessee.
So please make welcome to the Two Bottles Deep studio, just 10 minutes away from Broadway in Nashville, Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tavares, a.k.a. Vivica Steele.
Wow. Look at that.
Look at her.
The whole city in the crib today.
Tavares, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be here.
We have a lot to cover.
Yes.
And a lot of questions.
I have a lot of answers.
You do. You've been up on this. Philip, you want to start?
Yeah. First of all, let's do a quick summary. You got 2 minutes. Summarize your entire childhood in 2 minutes. Are you ready?
In 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to start a timer?
Go.
Okay.
Got it.
My childhood was Baptist. I went to church a lot. Wednesday, Sunday, we had Bible study. We would go to church at like 9 and wouldn't get home until like 2. I was the only child between my mom and my real dad. So I kind of grew up kind of like, I had brothers and sisters, but there was just something anointed about me growing up. I knew that the entire time, so it was very memorable. I remember like the summer mornings in this, in Tullahoma, Tennessee. It's like like really family oriented, elementary schools. Like it was just a really home, small town type of feel, and we grew up in the church and, we played a lot of sports. It had a lot of love, anything a kid wanted, we got played a lot of dirt.
Yes.
Hey, Tullahoma, that's home of a Grand Ole Opry star.
Who?
Oh my God, I just played. Dustin Lynch.
Dustin Lynch.
Oh.
So,
Do you know him?
I do know Dustin.
Okay, we're going to need a connection after this is over.
Dustin and I went to school together. And I know his aunt was actually my teacher in my public relations course.
Oh, okay.
In high school, yeah.
Small world. Well, there's a lot of big people coming out of Tullahoma.
Yes,
you
I'm happy
and
to be
him.
one
I was going to say you.
I know there's two. You and him. Maybe more. What was your family's reaction to you doing drag? And when did you know that you wanted to do drag?
Oh, I didn't know what drag was growing up, and I think that my parents, I had seen like Mrs. Doubtfire, in Living Color, with like Shanae or Wanda from In Living Color and Shanae from like Martin Lawrence. We grew up on those type of television shows. Yeah. And also being a Baptist in the South, I would see women every Sunday practically dressed as drag on the front pews, like their church hats, matching shoes. My grandmother was one of those, honey. She had a hat and a pair of shoes that with every coat dress that she had.
Love it.
Yeah. Just mannequins with hats sitting on.
I love
it. And boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was cute.
Interesting. So when did you know you were gay? When did you know you wanted to do drag? And how'd your family take that?
I didn't even know what gay was. Growing up in like the South, we watched like the poorest of reality television. So every time I would see, gay growing up, it would be like on Jerry Springer. And I was like, oh my God.
They're fighting.
And just turn up and just like,
I'm not that turned.
Yeah.
I can't be gay.
I slept with your man. You're like, oh my God, no, that's not what I'm looking for. But, I knew that I was different. And I think that my first experience was when I was a freshman in college. I had went to an old gay club that was here called The Connections.
I've heard of that.
Gay friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with him because he was running for office at Martlow State Community College. And I wanted to kind of, befriend him, but also defeat him. But I didn't know. But there's something that drew me to him in the process. So I went to the gay bar with him, and then this guy totally thought I was attractive and started hitting on me, and I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend. And I was like, dude, I'm not like that. That's weird.
Dude, stop.
Yeah, please stop texting me.
How did you get my number?
And so then, right? But in the moment, you're like, we can be friends, you seem cool. So then my girlfriend's sister got into my phone.
Ooh.
And saw the text messages. And they had already knew it per se, but it wasn't so crazy coming out because it was like first year in college. They were all basketball girls. Half of them were lesbians anyways, softball girls. And they were like, Tavares, we knew you were gay before you knew you were gay. And I was like, I love you for it. But no, my family, it took some years for them to really understand the foundation I used my drag for as far as the ministry. Like my grandfather was a Baptist minister, he was a reverend and everything. So that was his form of ministry. And I really, truly believe that, this is my calling and this is my form of ministry. And the initial discussion between my parents, it was shocking. It was shocking.
Being gay or doing drag?
The being gay.
That's coming out twice almost, right?
Yeah. It was crazy. It was crazy because in Black culture, it's almost like you're the man. You're the man. It's not. I didn't raise you like that, and it was so hard for my mother. And I would hear those words, and I didn't raise you like that, and it was so devastating because as I grew to understand who Tavares was in the process, it was breaking through a lot of those old religious thought processes that was damaging to myself, to my mom, to our relationship. I felt guilty, like I was doing something to, break her. And that's the last thing a son wanted to do for their mother, So when she was like, I didn't raise you like that, it was almost like, okay, you didn't, but that has nothing to do with your parenting of me,
Right. Is it harder to be gay or less accepting to be gay in the Black community? Is there just so much masculinity, or because you just kind of alluded to that, they didn't raise you that way?
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic. But for me, and I speak for myself, my experience in the Black community is, either you're all the way in and committed to being gay, or you're, you don't really talk about it because you really hold on to those chains of religious beliefs because of the sacred of your family,
Right.
You don't want your grandparents to know. In reality, I think they know. My grandfather knew when he was dying. He knew. And he grabbed me by my hand and he said, just stay true to who you are.
Oh, wow.
I never even had to say the word, but he knew that I was different. Yeah.
So how did you come up with the stage name Vivica Steele?
Oh my God. That is another story, but I will give you a snippet of it.
Okay.
So my previous partner, my first partner that I dated when I moved to Nashville, we started playing softball and everything together. And, we had started doing drag shows to raise money for, travel and expenses and stuff like that. So she at the time was a Steele.
Okay.
And so I just kind of grandmothered into that name of Steele, and watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
Yep.
Aunt Viv,
Yeah.
Vivica just seems like such a powerful name. So I was like, and then being like Aunt Viv from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like that's how I really see Vivica Steele, is like Black excellence. And so, we separated and she changed her name. But I was like, Tina Turner, like Angela Bassett and What's Love Got to Do with It? You can go, but the name stays.
I'm keeping the name.
I'm keeping the name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kept my name. I polished my name, and here we are years later.
And how long have you been doing drag?
Oh, since 2010, and it's 2023.
Yeah, 13 years.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and we could probably do a whole show on how you've evolved.
Yes.
And your wardrobes and your routines and your performances. I want to know more about that, but this episode.
Well, I would tell you real quick. We got pictures right before, one of the shows that we had done recently at Bridgestone, because, my ex and I, we've really developed a sisterhood, and I'm very grateful for that at this particular time in our lives, and so we were looking at pictures back then of when we were baby drags. To now, oh my God, yeah,
I'd love to see that.
We'll show. We'll make that happen. Okay. We'll make that happen.
Well, the main reason for this show today is to be able to talk about the drag queen ban that's been the talk of international news. And before we did that, I was very interested to kind of go back and find out some history, because I am in the gay community and didn't know where drag started, embarrassingly enough.
You're not the only one.
So I think that's important. So Wes and I took a deep dive on learning. So here's a very quick history lesson for everybody involved. If you didn't know this, drag has been around for centuries, forever. There are examples of drag in ancient Greece, in Japan as part of the kabuki tradition. In 17th century, people probably know this one. Women weren't allowed to perform on stage, so men would dress in women's clothing and be the female in all the plays. So this is something that's been going on for a while. And even in America in the 1850s, William Dorsey Swann, and this was very interesting. He became the first drag queen in the United States. He survived being enslaved and the Civil War, and later was performing drag just like steps away from the White House at a home. He would have drag balls. So fascinating to me that a man who was a slave, who had been through so much and went through the Civil War, still found his passion after all that, and he had a drag house. It's kind of, you've seen that in shows recently, the big drag houses. So,
and it's ironic that Tennessee was the first state to come out with all this malarkey, because in 1918, the Tennessean was producing content in their paper celebrating drag queens. And they would have pictures congratulating people on wins or performances. And it was a big thing even in the 40s and 50s. Drag queens were coming here from Chicago and Indianapolis, larger drag communities, to the little old South. And we have to give out a shout out to the Belcourt Theater. They had a history of drag, and there were a few trans issues in there as well. A couple weeks ago here at the Belcourt. So they're strong allies. They do a lot for the LGBTQI plus community, and you'll learn a lot from that. And I didn't know our Tennessean, and here in Nashville, everybody was so supportive back in the day. So we kind of want to talk to Vivica about that and what this bill, because I think a lot of us are confused about this bill. I've had friends call me from Chicago and they're like, well, what's going on? I'm like, I don't get it. I'm reading this and I don't understand. I see more raunchy things at Hooters and a football game. Oh, I don't go to Hooters anymore, by the way.
Oh, good. I'll put that in my journal. I was just about to ask.
But been many years. But yeah.
Well, speaking of the ban, so if people don't know, if you've been under a rock, what's going on in Tennessee? On March the 2nd, Republican Governor Bill Lee signed a bill into law that would restrict public drag show performances. It restricts adult cabaret performances in public or in the presence of children, or within 1,000 feet of schools, public parks, and places of worship. And punished by a fine of up to $2,500 or a year in jail. And this increases to 6 years if multiple violations, and it becomes a felony. So, first question, Tavares, a.k.a. Vivica Steele. What was your first reaction? Did you have any idea that this was coming down the pike? And what was your reaction to it?
I think like most of the community, we were in complete and utter, disbelief that this was actually happening. But, like I've expressed to my colleagues and my sisters and my brothers in the trans and LGBTQ community, this really isn't, we don't want to be distracted. This bill has nothing to do with children. This bill, in my personal opinion, is just a continuation, like you mentioned, in the end of that bill, that it's punishable up, to a felony. When you start charging people with felonies here in the state of Tennessee, any felony is considered infamous. So when you're convicted of an infamous felony, basically that gives the government the right to take away your right to vote, right? So in my personal opinion, it's not about the drag bill. It's not about the children. I mean, if it was about the children, we would have safer gun laws. If it was about the children, we would, have better pay for our teachers to provide quality education to our students. If it was about the children, we would hear the young people's voices as they marched, on our state capitol, and wouldn't call them, the worst thing since the insurrectionists of January 6th, things like that. This is not about our children. So the drag bill in itself is just another step in basically trying to suppress, a marginalized group of individuals and basically take away our voices.
And in the past 10 years, there's been 38 priests, pastors, rabbis arrested for endangering children.
Yeah.
And I've not really seen that on the news or talked about. How many drag queens have
I got that one. Zero.
Arrested.
Zero.
Thank you.
Not even for not even for like public displays of indecency. I mean, they follow the Tennessee liquor laws when they're performing. I mean, they can, if you're flashing your hoo-ha, anybody flashing their hoo-ha on stage, I mean, there's a chance you're going to get, you're going to break a law. There's an indecency law. So,
and I say this in the kindest of ways also. But, we've raised a lot of money in our drag shows for, homeless LGBTQ youth as well. But by no means is a drag queen sitting around upset because we were saying, bring your children to our drag show. Bring your children to our drag show. It's the right that if a parent or an adult wants to do that, that should be their right. And that should be, that should be between them and that family if they want to do that. We're not upset because we don't want children at our drag shows, which is the contrary popular belief.
Right.
It's not that. Sometimes I know some sisters that are like, please leave your kids at home, know. We wouldn't get flus and stuff as much. But, in the process of raising funds and stuff for the kids, it's your right to make those decisions for your children,
it brings me to a good question. I was at the City Winery when you were performing recently, and I thought about, like, if you're out performing and you see a group of kids or, 3 children sitting, do you change at all your performance? Is there like there's kids here, I need to, because for me, I wouldn't. Like, the whole point is to give the 100% all the time. Would you change the way you performed if you saw kids in an audience?
That's a great question. I think that, all of my performances are family-friendly performances. Like I said, my main objective here is to raise money for children that are less fortunate, So, I think when we were at that show, I did a Whitney Houston, Greatest Love of All, because it's a powerful song. It's the message, I do believe that children, are our future, and so I don't personally feel like I need to adapt my song choices. I do think sometimes when you have some of our sisters that are, dance queens, they can dance the house down. When they know the environment, they will adjust their songs, because that's what they choose to do, right?
I thought about that because for me, one of the things I love about drag is it always seems like there's 1,000% effort given to every song. It's like I get so much energy and so much, like, I'm barely able to stay sitting when songs start. I'm just like, oh my God, she's about to tear this place down. I'm so excited. And I come out and I'm like, if I see a kid, I'm like, oh, come on. Now I can't do my split squat or whatever it is.
I think I've seen you do that kick before.
Yeah.
I can tell when you're really good, Philip.
And I'm always excited to know what song's coming next.
Yeah.
Like, even at City Winery, that was Inclusion, Tennessee, right? And the night before, you were at Bridgestone Arena.
Yes.
And it's just been an amazing whirlwind here in Nashville since all this was brought up. And I just want to know how much time it takes you to get ready. How do you have a set list? Do you always learn new songs? Do you stick to the same 30? Like, tell me all the good stuff.
Oh my goodness. So when you were saying a moment ago, like, you're like, oh, you bring all this energy and stuff to the show, like, it starts hours before. So a typical day for me, especially this month, I VitaFlow over on Demonbreun. They give like IVs with like magnesium, your B12 complex, for inflation and stuff for my knees and stuff. So I've been doing like my IVs or vitamins and stuff like that. So usually the process, like, it's a day, it's usually like 3 hours. Some of us, I mean, like,
oh wow,
it's 3 to 4 hours. I've gotten down my face painting down to about 2 hours.
No kidding.
It takes about 2 hours of gluing the brows down, and then doing the bead and then making sure you pick out the hair. And then all of a sudden you can buy a leotard, but then you have to stone that leotard. And then, then you have to pour out like 1,500, 5mm stones and then glue them one by one to make the garment shiny. So when you talk about the energy and the preparation that goes into that, and then learning the song, like if I have like 4 songs, I maybe will rotate. Each show we're probably doing 4 numbers, I'm guessing on average. So sometimes you'll rotate and sometimes you'll just like do the same number, but then mix it up with a different hair, mix it up with a different pair of shoe or jewelry. I mean, people don't understand that it's not like we're just going to like, no offense to anyone that does that, and actually I'm going to save that because it could come off wrong. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money in our drag and what we in our art, when it comes to makeup, when it comes to brushes, when it comes to, brows, lashes, nails, setting sprays, palettes, shoes. I have more shoes as a girl than I do as a guy. And sometimes you have to stop and be like, okay, I cannot buy any more shoes.
Okay.
Right. Tavares needs a pair of shoes now. So.
Oh my God. Like I'm on probation right now. I cannot literally buy anything else. And I'll try to order stuff and sneak it in. And then babe's like, what is that?
So how long does it take to get everything off? Is it like 2 minutes of like a quick face wipe, or are we like a 45-minute process of?
So this month, it's been crazy. But you have to put down, I mean, it's a process of getting out of drag. Like sometimes I'll do my face, I'll be so tired, I'll just clean my face the best that I can, and we'll go to bed with my brows still glued down. And I'll take my finger the next morning, I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm just like, oh my God, it could be an all day thing. And then you find glue and stuff places, you're like, oh, my face is clean. And then you're at a business meeting and with your glasses on like Monday morning, you're like, there's lash glue on my lashes. I know they saw that.
I love it.
I want to talk about Broadway. Yeah. So if anybody has ever been to Nashville, the honky tonkiest street, and I mean, I love country music. And Nashville is still a diverse city, but when you get the tourists coming here, knowing that they're going to come to Kid Rock's, right? That's a whole different demographic. How is it performing on Broadway? You have 2 residencies there. You're very well known in the city. What do tourists think?
I think the tourists love it. We've never had any crazies, in regards to individuals that have been down there. They've always been, welcoming, but at the same time.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I think, but at the same time, for me, it's just different because, I played rugby. I played like wing for the Nashville Grizzlies. So when I went down there, like, I'm a strong Black woman, and I feel like, ain't nobody's going to say anything crazy to me. Like, you get out of the car in face paint and a small t-shirt. You're like, oh God, she's so strong, But no, we haven't had any crazy encounters or anything like that. And we've been very fortunate thus far. I will tell you, we had a drag show one time when the Trump parade came through the middle of downtown. And that was a little intense just because of the unknown, But as far as someone verbally or physically assaulting my girls or myself, like, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I told you I'm I was raised from the South myself, so
ready to go.
Listen, she was raised on a farm.
Well, I think, it's very brave. I remember the first time I went to see you at Tin Roof, I was uncomfortable because, and it wasn't anything about, it was my own issues of like, we're sitting and there was like a NASCAR race going on downstairs, and then we walked through it, and I was trying to I'm like, wait a minute, this is so strange for me because I'm walking through Redneckville to get to my place, and I'm there, and it was perfect. Yeah. Like everything went great. I had an absolute blast. I'm like, why was I so worried about? And some of that still haunts me. It's like I'm still not 100% comfortable around rednecks. Listen, I still get a little. I get a little weird, and I was worried for you. I was like, if somebody rushes the stage, I'm probably not brave enough to help, but I'm going to push Wes right in front of them.
Right in front of them. Got it. Well, you got to get to a point where you can, if you see someone getting a little bit too redneck, you just got to reach back in your soul and find that redneck within you as well, and just be like, we can meet redneck to redneck.
Yeah,
like
I like that.
Yeah, so I'm not scared about it.
Redneck to redneck.
Philip here is a sheep shearing champion here in Tennessee.
If you need a sheep sheared, I know most people do.
He will kick some ass.
I can shear a sheep faster than anybody.
Like an
actual sheep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's my
He
only
did that.
talent. Yeah. You've got residencies. I'm shearing sheep. Who's doing better?
Well, and I think we've been out a few times in Broadway where people say fag and queer.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where some of that fear comes from.
But I just love the bravery of like getting out of your car with a face painted and a t-shirt and just being like, "Hey, bitches, I'm here. Move."
Yeah.
We did a Pride show one year there, and at that moment when I hosted that Pride show, I remember coming down there and I was thinking to myself, "You're right. There's a lot of honky tonk, but Broadway is the heart of Nashville, and we belong down here just like everyone else." And and that's why when it goes back to the Harriet Tubman of Broadway, as far as activism and like command and strength, like going in places where others were like, "Are you doing that? Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Are you? I mean, how's your show doing? It's going great." And being able to have that factor and open up drag to people that may come to Broadway and then they're like, "There's a drag show at the top of this bar where there's a race car." That's amazing. And those are the type of impacts that you really have when you have someone come up there and they're like, lips drop, but they can't help but give you a $20 because they're like, "You look so good." Like, are this Tina Turner, or is this Whitney Houston? And I think it kind of unites us all, visibility. Yeah. But
I've heard when people come to town, they'll see pride flags, or they'll see drag queens, or see the drag bus, which is your birthday party that one year. The best time. People are just, and you look out the window and people are pointing and dancing at
Some
it,
are.
Yeah.
The rest are like,
what? Because again, we have to remember that some people come to Nashville thinking it's Nashville 1970.
Sure.
George Jones, no offense to the possum, but they think it's the old Nashville and the old South, and Nashville is just not that. You have Bridgestone America, you have Dollar General is based out of here, Cracker Barrel. They're all huge supporters of Pride. And when you tell people that, they're like, "No, they're not." I'm like, "Yes, they are. They're at the Pride parades. They're at Pride. They support different charities." So that's Nashville. And if you don't know Nashville, that's Nashville. This is Nashville. This is Nashville. And we're the blue dot. I love it.
Yes. And I'm it's been hard, but I'm truly, truly grateful to identify as a Tennessean. I've grew up here, like it would be crazy to, people are moving away and things like that. All I can say is like, I'm just grateful that, we do have people that I feel like there's more of us in the middle than there are on either side, actually. Actually, my partner's dad wrote a song about that, but I believe that Nashville has a lot more individuals. I believe Tennessee has a lot more individuals that are in the middle, that are really truly on either side. And we have to find that common ground, where it's about love, respect, and unity and community.
Do you think all of this hoopla, the bill and stuff, is bringing more positivity to you and the drag queen community and the LGBTQ community?
I think these bills are having individuals, that have the ability to utilize their critical thinking skills. They are, having to have a come to Jesus with themselves. I think as a true Christian and a true believer in Christ, sometimes you have to really stop and think, what gets sickening is seeing individuals weaponize Christ, Christ's love and trying to position, their judgment into what he had already, written, like I think that gets kind of old. So I think that right now the battle that's going on and what you'll see, hopefully in my prayers are, we saw it on the Capitol the other day, when the youth, I think what you're going to see is people really coming to reality with themselves that it's not about drag. It's not about, it's not about A, B, C, and D. It's not about, turning, trans youth away from, medical care. I mean, it's not about, banning drag queens and trying to make them convicted felons. Has nothing to do with that. So as far as, change and things like that, I think that you're going to, that only Tennessee can answer that question, or what are we going to do? Are we going to stand for that? Or are we going to unite and say Tennessee is better than that? And I'm hoping the latter part is where we stand.
We are better.
If you could sit down with Governor Lee, let's say you had 3 minutes of his time and your hands were restrained. No, like what, and it was specifically about this drag ban. What you think is important for Governor Lee to hear?
You know, I was asked that question in an interview the other day when we were doing a documentary. And that's been the hardest question because, it's hard to try to have a discussion with someone when you don't really feel like there's any viable legitimacy behind something. It's like if someone does something and you're like, even though they know that they're wrong, and you try to tell them that they're wrong, it's kind of going to more upset you that they're not going to receive that what they did was kind of crazy. So, in regards to Governor Lee, I don't have anything I want to say to him. I want him voted out. I want him and all of his constituents gone. I think that that's the only way that, we can drive out this darkness that has clouded Tennessee. And honestly, I think by not saying anything is a blessing for him.
And he himself has been in drag.
It was horrible.
And then,
it was the worst.
It was not flattering. So there's so much hypocrisy, I believe.
He was
on
also
the right here.
Yeah, he was also in a Confederate uniform.
Yeah.
Pictured. So he's just got a history of. I mean, I get it. If you go through my past, I'm sure I've got pictures of things that aren't great.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, this is kind of different. I think for me, if I could sit with him, I would just. I mean, the fact that children are dying from gun violence. It's the number one killer of children in Tennessee.
But he knows that.
But I just, that's the only thing I can say to him because there's nothing else that I can say that'll change. You can't change. My dad always says you can't change people's core belief system. Yeah. And so I'm not going to convince him otherwise. I'm just going to have to tell him you're going down the wrong path. You're finding any other reason to address the main issue. Well, one of the main issues in Tennessee, which is guns.
Yeah, but they haven't, even with the school shooting, they still haven't brought that up. They still, it's like, it's almost like, a seatbelt law or other laws where it's like, okay, it's going to stop most of it. It's going to save most people. It's like with guns, it's like they don't even want to try. And that's how I look at this. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Well, let's try some things. Let's do some things.
And I think that's where we are, as a country. It gets so overwhelming, when we look at seeing, political divide, in reality, it's just being a good human being and doing the right thing for the greater of humanity. Right. And I think that we get so caught up in these politics of things that it's easy to, forget about who we are as individuals at our core, and I think that has a lot to do with greed, I think that has a lot to do with, power, and I think that we have really created an environment where we start to consider everybody a winner. In reality, not everybody's a winner, and people need to be held accountable for the things that they do. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to say anything because if I say something, then what's going to happen to me? And that's a horrible place to live in. Yeah. I remember a time where someone could do something that was disrespectful, and you could say, hey, I don't like that. Or even growing up, as a Black Baptist in the South, let us be crazy down the street. And then our neighbor tell my grandmother, we would get in trouble at home because of the disrespect we executed down the street. We've gotten so far away from accountability because we have our politicians constantly escaping accountability,
Yeah.
And that's crazy in itself.
And you're talking about the Trump parade earlier.
Yeah.
With a pride parade. With the Pride Festival and the shows and the bands, those are on public land. Those are on government land. Those are within 1,000 feet of a church or a school. You walk by a church and a school on the Pride Parade downtown Nashville. Does that affect that?
Yeah.
Because if you're marching in a parade, is that a performance? So I was confused about that.
Could be.
So it could.
The language is so vague.
It's so vague. It could be even to the point where you have a trans individual walking down the street in public, and just because of
going to the store,
just going minding their business, or just coming from lunch with their friends, and just because of the vagueness of this bill, it allows them to say, "Hey, you,"
because they're scared of people. They're scared of what they don't know. The right, they have to be scared. Like, I don't understand how this is like. I want to say 1920s, but obviously they were supporting y'all then. But it's like we're going so far back in time. I just don't understand how people can't let other people live.
I think fear is some part of it. I mean, people are definitely scared of what they don't know, but there's politics. There's reasons for bills being introduced that may seem like it's headed towards one direction, but like Tavares was saying, it actually is much bigger than that, right? If a simple little, it's just a silly little drag ban, it's not a big deal. But if that drag ban affects one drag queen who gets a felony, who then can't vote, success for the Republican Party. That's exactly part of the reason for this, I think, is to silence the people, the marginalized people, because then they can pass, they can lower the open carry laws. They can do these things. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I do think fear is part of it, but I think it's a little more sinister.
It is, and you both have said, and I'm going to say this as candid as I can, but it's kind of humorous because we said, people are scared of what they don't know. But then, you have, respectfully, you have like people like the lieutenant governor and they know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let them pretend.
He got a little Instagram model boyfriend.
Are in here, identifying as, and it's crazy to say, but I'll tell you the one thing that sticks out to me the most is, if you guys watched Oprah, and I believe if Oprah says it, it happens. If it's on the Oprah show, it happens.
It's the Bible.
Right? It's the Bible, right? So, I remember when they go back and do that segment with Donald Trump at that particular time, and he says, if I was to run for office, I'd run for Republicans because they'd be dumb enough to vote me in.
I've never forgot that. Even when he won, I'm like, did they not see that?
How many times, and me being from the foundation that I'm in, and seeing the wicked that I've seen, in the pulpits and things like that and whatnot, I know that there's some men and women out there that are messengers for Christ and what his will is. But there's also a lot of people out there that are wolves in sheep clothing that'll speak the language but have ulterior motives, So when you have people talking about, these conservative values and voting for these bills and stuff, and then they're turning around talking to little 17-year-olds and you're 70 years old, like, it's like, okay,
amen.
What are you can't say people are scared of what they don't know, because you clearly know what you're doing.
He definitely does.
It's manipulation at its finest. And it's playing off people's, faith, which is unfortunate. I mean, we have conservative friends, I have conservative friends in Florida, and I'm so grateful for them. And outside of, we have those uncomfortable discussions. Just because someone is a conservative and you may not see them, vote the same way, doesn't mean you have to be rude to them and not really be compassionate and have that discussion,
And why are they voting conservative? Is it for this? Probably not. Yeah. It's probably
fiscally,
border security,
financial. And that's.
But then you have to have those discussions that say, well, if you, but also when you vote this way, you're also voting for A, B, C, and D to broaden their horizon. Right. And one thing we've tried to really kind of focus on is retracting the browbeating and being able to have dialect that's open and that's, that you can really have those discussions with individuals that may not look like you do, may not vote like you do, may not speak like you do, so.
I brought this up before. They have these things called the human libraries. Have you ever heard of that?
I am a human librarian.
You are. See, you would be a perfect person for it. So with some of our associations around town, it's almost like a mixer, but instead of checking out a book, like you and I would have a conversation for 5 minutes, and then it's almost like speed dating type of thing. And then you hear someone, you get 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes, I tell my story, and that's that part of. Like when I came out, especially being from a small conservative town, it's like people are like, "Oh, you're gay. Okay, so now I know a gay person," and it gives them that light into it. Because and a few of them, you're right. A lot of these people, they know exactly what they're doing, and there's a lot of people out there that they're scared that you're going to corrupt a child, and then that child's going to be a drag queen. And I never saw anything about being gay, and I knew I was gay.
Or they think all drag queens are satanic or from the dark.
So you're doing this to get into a restroom. Like I just don't, that and trans to get into a restroom to a kid. I don't get it. But what else in this bill would, I mean, the whole language is just, I mean, it's
vague.
confusing. It's confusing.
It literally allows government here in Tennessee to come in to any establishment. This is what the bill would allow, is for them to basically target anyone that is in the presence of a child in drag, or basically a transgender individual. If you're walking down the street and you're a trans person transitioning, you're vulnerable. If I just get finished with a drag show and I'm walking down the street and happen to pass the school that's downtown to my car,
Right.
Apparently that could be, that could be a situation. But at the same time, I think that when it comes to the legislation here in Tennessee, we really just have to, once again, make sure you vote for your local individuals, because, like in Davidson County, no matter what they do, it's your local individuals. And that's where our concern and our heart is, when you get in more of the rural corner parts of Tennessee, it brings intense concern. Mm-hmm. But here in Nashville, that's not going to be prosecuted, and we're fortunate because of local leaders, but they're also trying that by taking away the runoffs, so we can get the concern. So they are trying. I'm telling you, this drag bill we cannot be distracted by what they're doing, because they're doing all these fireworks, but in the background, they're doing all the little things that really matter, that can really just be destructive.
Yeah, they want to take away so many council spots as well.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That'll totally turn it.
The oversight committee, they're trying to minimize that. I mean, I think there should be accountability, and when it comes to that, the community should be the one that has that accountability, within the communities that they serve. So when you come in there and you start trying to take away of accountability, that's when I mean, that's business. Yeah. That's business manipulation 101, remove accountability, and then we just do what we want and have a free for all. And the next thing you know, it's a crap show, I
like the way you put that. It's a distraction. It's like they put this out here, but then all the rest of it.
I pray against it every night.
Well, and leading up to these last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of support in our community. Yes. And you have had some pretty awesome opportunities. I'm super jealous of. Really. I mean, you've been at Bridgestone, you've been at Ryman, I mean, City Winery, like you've been all over the place. Tell us how fabulous that was, and then what that meant to you.
It was first of all, it was so amazing. I tell you, we did the first show at the Ryman, and I was not really surprised by that invitation, because Ashley McBryde and Brothers Osborne, they're really kind of like family members of ours. We got to spend time with Ashley McBryde in Alaska and get to really know her while she was on tour with my partner's dad. And TJ and John, they're just like uncles. So when we heard about Lindyville and everything, it was crazy how God just works, because my company, the backstory, my company had let me go last year, and I started my own company, ABC&D. But I missed being in the Lindyville music video, and my severance that I had got from my company ended on the 15th. Well, the February the 15th, I was on the stage at the Ryman Auditorium.
Oh, wow.
With Ashley McBryde, not one night, but that was my first night, but we had 2 nights there. And then ever since then, with business and everything just going. So I feel like when it comes to leadership and it comes to a calling, I mean, I've really been very humbled by these experiences, and just really been taking this moment to really showcase, humility, and to really encourage, love in such a crazy, confusing time, So I'm really excited, and I mean, I have my hair. I mean, it's been crazy.
I was living for it.
Driver, look, ready.
Living. I can get used to this.
Look, people were like, Vivica, are you scared? I'm like, no, I just got a driver now that takes me everywhere I go. He picks me up and he picks me up, waits for me, and then takes me home.
Nice.
To our shows.
I mean,
just
that's
another Tuesday.
Just another Tuesday.
And the city winery show, we took our girlfriends, Mercedes and Stacia, who are great allies. And there was like a guy sitting next to me, and you came out. I'm like, I know her. And then like we're like name dropping. But you're doing so much for the community.
Yes.
And it's bravery. It's visibility for a child. We didn't see that growing up. None of us saw that stuff growing up, and we didn't think we could be who we knew we were born to be. So kudos to you, and your performances are out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen much, after living in Austin, I'm like, I like the scene here better.
Yeah.
Like I love the drag scene here.
Yes.
Austin's great, but it's so great here.
The Southern drag is always has a twist with Southern hospitality. And for me, I think, like I said before, when we do our, raising of funds for children and everything, one thing that stays true to my heart is that someone once made space for me to be where I'm at today. And it's a blessing to be able to create space and opportunities for others that can, evolve, that can grow. And I think that sometimes it starts when you're younger, So we're just really honored. And, we wouldn't be who we were without the community that we have that supports us as well. So we don't ever want it to be like, I think sometimes people can get in their head and forget the purpose you serve, So I'm happy to be to step into the role of being a community vessel, like that's what I consider is just being a vessel.
Yeah. And breaking news.
Yeah.
There's a ban on the drag ban. So
yes.
So what happened the other day?
I prayed over it. I was
like,
Tavares, aka Vivica Steele, did her prayer.
I'm telling you, we were talking about that. They're like, we have different strengths in our organization, and I was like, we all do have different strengths, but can't nobody pray like I pray. You can't pray like I
worked.
pray. Listen, but
a judge.
Yeah, a judge out of Memphis.
Struck this down.
A Trump appointed judge.
Appointed
Thank
judge.
You, Dr. Trump.
I guess filed a restraining order to restrain the release of this ban, and I'm probably butchering the way that's said. I'm not a lawyer, but for 14 or 15 days, that ban is not going to be in effect because, and he cited how vague the language was exactly what everyone's saying.
Dangerous.
Like I wouldn't know as a police officer. Can I arrest them for this? Is this are you breaking the law? So we're grateful for that restraining order. And for that Trump appointed judge.
And that when you hear stuff like that I'm telling you, I think our years that we've been going through it for some years. Like I think as American people, it's just been like WTF every time you turn around.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that regardless of what is, once again, political aspects and parties and stuff, I think that when accountability starts taking its role and call it the coming of Christ or whatever you may call it, like I think that you're just going to kind of start seeing, things like that really not matter because you can be a conservative judge, but still have core and human convictions to say this is wrong, this is not right. And that's what really matters,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful for him.
Yeah. Me too.
We all are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So where can people find you? And then where can people come see you? Because if you haven't seen Vivica Steele perform, I'll just tell you, she floats across the stage. I don't know how she does it. It's this kind of move she does. I'm like, what's happening?
You're over here.
It's like she'll just, and you don't see her legs move sometimes. I'm like, is she going to segue?
I thought
how did she get across the damn stage like that?
My great grandmother used to do that on Sunday mornings. Every time she got anointed, she'd be gone, just gone. I'm like, where'd she go?
But yeah, where can people see you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so we actually have a show tomorrow at City Winery. We have a Dragapalooza that we're gonna do tomorrow at City Winery. You can follow me on Instagram at Vivica Steele. That's VIVICA STEELE 615. You can follow me there. Show me some love there. And also, I'll be at the Queens of Broadway April the 16th as well. We'll have a upcoming drag bingo that we'll post on my story also. But I mean, yeah. And as far as finding me, you may not be able to find me unless it's at one of those locations. Because for the most part, when I'm not in drag, I'm hiding. I'm hiding
in your driver's car.
Yeah.
Still mad about that. How do I get a driver?
Hey, you meet a really cool person. You take a black XL for Uber, and now they're just kind of like,
Okay, write that down. We're gonna start that tonight. I'm gonna name drop too.
Yeah.
Do you know Tavares, aka Vivica Steele? I'd like her package, please.
How much do you make?
The Steele
I'll pay you
package.
this package.
All right. Another thing, to end on a fun note, what are some don'ts at a drag show? People that are going to come see you. Is there anything people shouldn't do at a drag show? And I'm sure he's got like a list. All right. Starting at the top, we've got.
Let me get my computer out now.
Right, my spreadsheet.
Don't touch drags. Do not touch a drag queen's wig. Do not pull on a drag queen. Give a drag queen $1. Don't pull a drag queen into your lap. And some people don't put, for me, I don't like people putting dollars in their mouths and thinking I'm going to come down there and get it. Like, I think that's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Just don't touch us. Because you don't even know where we're taped at, where we're pinned at. You don't know that just any little shake can just ruin your fantasy.
Yeah.
Ruin our fantasy. Any touch.
What are some do's?
Tip. Enjoy the performance. Don't try to get up in front of a drag queen and become the performance. The show's not about you. And if it's not for you, then feel free to step outside. But the same, don't ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah.
And always respect any queen that's in your presence, because it takes a lot, regardless if you think they look pretty. If you think their attire is beautiful, whatever it may be, you don't really understand how much energy and how much confidence it takes to put yourself in that role. So when I look at drag as a form of art, how we say in critiques, if you're not trying to help a queen with it, then you don't need to be commenting on it.
Yeah.
Because it's a really strong sisterhood. And so, just come for a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you bring some ones.
Lots of ones.
Yeah. Even brides, what are they called?
Oh, yeah.
Not bridesmaids. Brides, not bridesmaids.
What is that? Bachelorette party.
Bachelorette parties.
How are those?
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it can be okay until one friend starts crying and then everything else just goes horrible.
Oh, she's crying during the show?
Oh, God.
Because there's 14 of them and they all get one fight.
Or they want you to always take their picture. But then they're like, oh, it's just her wedding. Or to put a crazy straw in your mouth. I'm like, okay, I'm not holding any of that. Did I just tell you I'm raising funds for the kids?
Like,
stop.
This is my show.
Listen. Goodness.
But it is art and it takes a lot. Yes. And I've enjoyed every show.
Yes. Well, thank you. I've enjoyed looking out in the crowd and seeing familiar faces.
Yeah. I agree with Wes on this one. I love seeing you perform. There's lots of opportunities to see drag queens here in Nashville. Yeah. And one of the things I love and respect about you is I don't mind cattiness. I think catty can be funny, but you run a very tight ship with your shows. It's very professional. You've been to some where you're like, they have no idea what's going on. They don't even know what song's up next. I always know that with your shows, it's going to be very well produced, and I know exactly what I'm going to get. And you're very uplifting, and you're doing this for a good cause. And I think that's very admirable. I really respect you a lot for that. So
we have 2 rules at my show: be kind and have fun.
Done.
In that order.
It's a good way to live.
We do.
Yeah.
We definitely have fun. So,
well,
thank you so much.
Yes.
You're a
so
busy
honored.
person.
I know. Is your driver still out here? Because I just want to go talk to him.
I'm the driver today. Listen,
I'm Tavares, I was so excited to name drop myself. Well, we wanted to say thank you for doing this. I know, like Wes said, you're super busy. We appreciate your time a lot and your insight on this. And as this continues, we'd love maybe have you back. We have lots of emails with questions and comments, good and bad.
I'm here for it.
I know you're an open book now, and I love that about you. So thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you.
Your in-laws are best. Yes. You're around amazing people, talented people.
Listen.
And they're phenomenal.
And that's where I get all that strength from. It's just the people I hang with. I'm so fortunate. Yes. The family, the love.
Yes, amen. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
All right, babe. Well, I hope you have a good week.
You too, love.
All right. Love you.
Love you. See you next time.
Bye, babe. Kiss me.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of 2 Bottles Deep.
Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast.
And while you're at it, write us a fabulous review.
Please reach out to us on our email, 2bottlesdeep@gmail.com.
There is plenty of love in this world. Be a part of it.